Welcome, everyone. My name is Linda Johnson LeBlanc, and I'm the Marketing Director for Judson Press. Thank you for joining us for connecting with a community that is different from your church. Now, before I introduce our presenter of the day, I have a couple of quick notes about the webinar. First, if this is your first time with Judson, welcome. We're glad that you've joined us, and we've got a fantastic presentation to share. You should also know that your voices are muted, and if you could hold your questions until the end, we'll allow time for Joy to address them. Second, we're recording this presentation, and afterward, you will receive a link to the PowerPoint along with Joy's notes for your review. Now, I'm pleased to introduce to some and present to others our facilitator for today, Joy Skjegstad. Joy Skjegstad has been designing and launching community ministry programs for more than 25 years, including serving as the Executive Director of Community Development Nonprofits at Park Avenue United Methodist Church and Sanctuary Covenant Church in Minneapolis. And now as a full-time trainer and consultant, she works across denominations and cultures to help churches develop innovative initiatives that meet community needs and tap into the passions and the gifts of congregations. Joy has authored 3 books, and she is in demand as a speaker and webinar presenter with expertise in faith-based organizations, community and youth development, early childhood education, affordable housing, services for the homeless, and the arts. And now I'm very pleased to introduce and turn over our webinar to Joy Skjegstad.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am really happy to be presenting on this topic. I signed up to teach this a few months ago and put together this material. And I guess I would say it seems more relevant than ever at this point in the life of our country. My background is I am a white woman from Duluth, and I live in South Minneapolis, and it's a very diverse place. I'm going to talk quite a bit about ethnic diversity during the presentation, but certainly there are lots of different kinds of diversity, and hopefully there'll be some rules of thumb here that you can use in a variety of communities. So I'd be interested in the questions time if you just even want to type in some comments about how the community that you're working to minister to and with is different from your church. I live in South Minneapolis, and so I'm with immigrants and refugees all the time. I have a Somali client right now. I've been attending multi-ethnic churches my whole life, and right now we attend a church that's about 25% Karen, so immigrants from Burma, and so I've never written a book on cross-cultural communication. I'm not a person of color, but I really enjoy diverse communities, and I've been working in diverse churches for a lot of years. Always fascinated to learn more, and can't stand on my perch as an expert knowing it all, but I think I have some things to share based on my years of experience doing this. So this is a giant picture of me. This is my email address. I'd be interested in getting feedback from you on today's presentation. Also, I am a consultant, so relevant to this, I do a lot of work with churches to help them connect to the communities around their church and design new community ministry initiatives. I've also got a background in strategic planning, fundraising, and board training. These are my first 2 books. So Starting a Nonprofit at Your Church is for congregations that want to start a separate 501c3 nonprofit, usually for community ministry purposes. And then Winning Grants is self-explanatory. It's for congregations that want to connect to corporate and foundation funders and secure some funding. So those are available at Rowman and Littlefield. This is my book with Judson Press, so it's 7 creative models for community ministry, so available on the Judson website, and I think Linda will tell you about a discount possibility on that at the end of our webinar. So that really goes through the different models, the different ways that you could go about ministering in your community. So I'm going to talk first about some postures that I think it's good to have when you're going to connect with people of different cultures who are different from you. I think one posture, sort of a set of values that we're heading in with, is that we are all important and valuable. So it isn't ever like we know everything and you know nothing, or we're gifted and you're not, we're an asset to our community and you're a problem in our community, or this is kind of annoying that we're having to connect to you and what's up with you. Not that any of you would ever approach that way, but I talked to several good friends about this, people who I consider third culture, people who are really embedded in other ethnic cultures, and one of them talked about, she works with Latino refugees and immigrants, and just talked about whenever you get together in a group and you're going around and introducing each other, talk about even the unique gifts and abilities that each person is bringing. And so I think to be able to affirm that and talk about it and kind of keep it in front of you as you build relationships. I think another posture is that, you know, to come at it like it's possible that I know nothing about your culture, your religion, your situation, about you. I might think I know some things, but it's possible that I know nothing. And I actually find that people respond to that fairly well. So in working with my Somali clients this year, I've had to learn about Islam, and it's something that I didn't really know that much about before, but people have been willing to talk to me about it when I say, I really don't know very much and I really would like to learn more. So could you talk to me about that? Could you talk to me about the tradition of Ramadan and the tradition of Friday prayers? So I think we don't need to act like we know it all, or even like we know the important things if we really don't. I think that humility of coming in and saying, I really don't know much and I need you to teach me is important. And then another posture is that you are gifted and have something to teach me. And a lot of times in approaching people from other cultures, I find in my white majority culture we focus a lot on professional skills, professional success, having money, you know, you're on some kind of trajectory with your career. And my friends in my church who are Korean aren't really doing that trajectory. They're working a lot of blue-collar jobs and may not have college educations, and it doesn't mean that they're lesser than I am, and so they're gifted in many other ways. They have in their culture the gift of hospitality, and I've just seen that extended in extraordinary ways, ways that are not in me naturally. So that's when I'm talking about acknowledging that people are really gifted. Then another posture to approach from, I think, is to plan on listening more than talking. When you're approaching someone who's different from you, it can make you nervous. So if you're a nervous talker, you'll have to kind of talk to yourself before you go into meetings or a gathering, or you're going to do like a one-on-one conversation. And just say, you know, I'm planning on listening more than talking. I'm going to kind of check in with myself every couple of minutes to see how much I'm actually talking and how much I'm actually listening. And for me, a lot of times, you know, I'm a consultant, so I'm called to come in and talk to people about what's to be done. How can we solve this problem? What can we do next? And I'm talking to them, and then I have to say, well, I'm not here to solve their problem or to talk them into anything or facilitate something. I'm here to listen. So I put together 3 scenarios, and I wanted to do this presentation because I'm running into more and more congregations that have been around for a while. And I guess typically what I see is that the community changes around them ethnically. Usually it's Caucasian people in the church and people of color have moved into the community. Sometimes I did work with a church where it was the opposite. It was African American people in Brooklyn, actually, and if you've been reading about Brooklyn in the newspaper, you know that white hipsters are moving in like crazy and have like a different idea about life and a different set of values and a different, you know, what they do for fun kind of thing. So we were having this conversation with that church. I've also seen like age differences. So your community around you might be aging, have a lot of seniors, and maybe your church is a little younger, or maybe it's flipped. So those are the kinds of diversity I'm going to talk about today. There's certainly other kinds as well, so I'd love your feedback on whether this was helpful for your situation. So scenario number one is if there's an ethnic mix in your community. Like I said, the composition of the neighborhood around your church has completely changed in the past few years. So when your church began, you were surrounded by people who are like the people who are sitting in your pews now on Sunday. Now a great ethnic diversity of people live in the community. So it might be some immigrants and refugees, but some African Americans, maybe there are Native Americans. So an ethnic mix. Scenario number two is a different age mix. So like I said, maybe you've got an aging community, and that presents a lot of opportunities for ministry. So doing a project with the church in the western suburbs here that's aging rapidly, and they're seeing, it's this incredible increase in the incidence of Alzheimer's. So in that setting, what's the role of the church? What kind of community ministry could the church do? A turnover in housing, so maybe older residents move out of the community or pass away, so young families are purchasing housing. So maybe that's going on in your community, or maybe you're having a young adult takeover. I'd be interested in hearing about that. So if your neighborhood or your area is located near schools or where housing is cheaper, maybe the young adults are moving in droves. And if that's not who is in your church congregation right now, you've got a cultural barrier that you need to cross over. And then you might have an immigrant and refugee rich communities. I'm saying rich because I believe immigrants and refugees enrich our communities. They don't damage them. Or like somebody said recently about Minneapolis, cause us to suffer. So if you're seeing that, I think that's a real opportunity for you. People may practice a different religion or have very different cultural traditions. I would say in my experience that new Americans typically need help with basic needs, for sure navigating systems. So people often have a real challenge if they have school-age children navigating the public education system, figuring out how to sign up for benefits, figuring out how to secure housing and jobs. So those are all things that people in churches can help with. And often there is a language barrier. So I'll talk in a minute about bridge builders, and you might find bridge builders who speak several languages in the immigrant or refugee community. So I've got 10 strategies that I'm going to walk through here, and this is more about building relationships. So I think it's a different webinar to talk about like having a multi-ethnic church, or figuring out how to structure your ministries so that you're attracting more young adults into your church. This session is really more about how do we start the conversation, have good conversations, begin to build relationships, begin to understand each other. So I would say bridge builders are people who see the value of other cultures and who love building cross-cultural relationships. So I'm going to suggest that you look for people like that in your congregation. Maybe they're people who've been missionaries or who ministered in different cultural environments in the past, or somebody who works in a very multi-ethnic setting. School teachers that work in school districts that are diverse are often people who can be really great bridge builders. So people who have a knack for this. Can understand other cultures easily, so I've got an intergenerational photo here. So that'd be another barrier that maybe you're going to cross. How do you have fruitful congregations with conversations with aging adults or with young adults, depending on who's in your congregation? People who can communicate well and build trust across cultural barriers. So I would say, that's probably step one, and it's possible. I don't even know if you need to form a committee. I think it's nice to have like a small group of people thinking about this. Like if you really, if this is new to you or you kind of need to refresh your strategy on how you're going to connect more in community, I would get, a good number of the bridge builder types and maybe a couple others to just sit with you, whether you're a lay leader or a staff member, and kind of talk through how you're going to go about this. And I think too, you're looking to identify bridge builders in the culture that you want to connect with. People who are very interested in connecting with you and could understand what you're saying easily and kind of have a passion for the diversity of the community. So I would say strategy number two would be to learn about the cultures. So you're probably going to maybe do some reading Um, so you're looking for information on the current status of the group, issues they struggle with, what they hope for, the history, and then what's next. So for myself, with the refugee groups I mentioned, with Somalis and the Karen people, and I know a fair number of each group at this point, learning about the history of what happened in those countries that led to the mass migration here to the United States. So for the Karen, they're fighting a battle against the junta that's in charge of Burma. They're an indigenous group, a group that wants to be independent. Just getting a sense of that history of maybe what they experienced back when they were living in Burma, and also in the refugee camps gave me a perspective on the people here. And then in Somalia, the details of the war and probably the really, frankly, horrible things that people experienced before they came here gives me a perspective also. But really talking to people out, learning what people hope for, like what's their greatest hope and what's important to them and what they value. I think reading about current events, like I said, you might look at some literature written by people from the culture. So for Somalis, there's poetry, for example. If you have Latino immigrants, I'm just thinking of all the pretty amazing Latin writers that would give you a great sense of the culture. You might consider inviting some speakers into an education venue at your church, or maybe speak at worship. So again, that would probably be somebody who's a bridge builder in that other culture. Or looking at some events, films, theater, other kinds of cultural experiences, and this is for learning. Also, I say later on that you can use these for building relationships also, just to get to know people. But I think before you venture out, maybe doing some reading and just learning as much as you can about the culture. Strategy number 3 is to connect to institutions. So these are organizations that are composed of, working with, or working on behalf of the communities you're working to build relationships with. And depending on the size of your church, you might want to connect with 2 or 3, or maybe it's 5. And just go out and talk to people just to find out more about the culture. And then some ideas for you would be maybe to participate in their programs as attendees or volunteers. Like I said, connecting with the staff of the organization for advice and expertise. Consider partnering on something like a project or an event, for example. That'd be an option. So there might be advocacy groups in your community that are working around critical issues. So might be immigration as a whole, or New Americans, might be broken out by different ethnic groups. Culturally specific nonprofits. So here in Minnesota we have a lot of culturally specific Latino nonprofits. We have some that focus on like mental health services that would be tailored specifically for Latino people, early childhood development, so the kids are taught bilingually, and there's culturally specific materials that are used, so really weaving in art, literature, stories, images from Latin cultures. Some that focus on like employment for people of a particular culture. So you might look for organizations like that. Faith communities, so here I've got an African American church, so that, I mean, that would be possibly a great way to partner. So you might make a real connection with the pastor of that church or with some of the lay leaders and figure out some things that you can do together. And this is another shot of a faith community, so this is a young adult faith community. So if your community is now awash with young adults, maybe there are some of these church plants that are full of young adults. They love to do service. They're really interested in justice and advocacy and the environment, I would say, in my experience. And so to make a connection with a church like that and to really learn about what the young adults in your community are concerned about. Mutual assistance associations are set up by a particular, usually immigrant group, and it's usually run by people, so this is a Hmong American Partnership, one that's here locally. So run by Hmong people for Hmong people. So it'd be playing a particularly important role for people that are just arriving and helping them get connected to the services that they need. Environmental groups, so yeah, you could look at doing community gardening or cleanup or some local sustainability projects, or look at kind of broader advocacy involvement around protecting the environment. And young adults, I don't know, I think the environment is important to people kind of across the generations right now, but I feel like it's um, it's a it's so important to young adults they can't imagine not having that as a focus in their lives, putting a lot of energy and thought and money and time into environmental causes. And then health promotion organizations, so ones that encourage fitness or that focus on nutrition. I think this has an appeal across generations, but I think particularly for young adults, again, that's woven into their lives in a way that I think it might not be for older generations. So I've been reading articles about how young adults spend their money, and they might live in a teeny tiny little apartment but spend $2,000 on a really great bicycle because that's very important to them. It's something that they're going to do and use every day. And then look for institutions that just gather people. So it might be people in a particular ethnic group or around some, it might be organized around some critical issues. Excuse me. So they are the ones that have a community forum, for example, if something happens or if there's a concern. So get connected to institutions like that as well. Strategy number 4 is to find out about hospitality traditions. Strategy number 5 is coming together around food. So I think to be able to do some learning about how people in different cultures practice hospitality. This is Filipino hospitality, so from a web page about that. So ask questions about when and how do people gather. So this is a picnic in the summertime. Maybe people are more likely to gather on Sunday after church, or maybe it's on the weekend, maybe it's on a weeknight. Where is it likely to happen? Would be another question. Who does the inviting? So I've got a picture of elders here. In some cultures, it's really sort of elder to elder when groups are going to come together and have a meeting. Sometimes I've experienced it as being the women that kind of organize things, hospitality being more in that area that they're going to work. So I would just ask questions about who would be the best person, who should we talk to if we wanted to bring our groups together in some kind of formal way. And then what happens when we get together? So probably we're going to eat, but what are people in the culture that you're interested in accustomed to doing? This is a picture of a choir of Karen young people, and I've learned that they really like to sing. So they have choirs, just about every young Karen person I know is in a choir. So it'd be really weird to them to get together and not stand up and sing. They're always working on music. So that was new to me. So it might be music, it might be dancing, it might be storytelling, it might be sitting down and having conversations in a particular way. Maybe the elders in the group get to speak to the group, and that would be a hospitality tradition. So just try and learn as much about this as you can, because you want to be informed so you can be as hospitable as possible. You don't want your efforts to connect to fall flat. You want to show that you took the time and made the effort to learn about their culture. So I think strategy number 5 would be to find a way to gather around food. I talked to my sister-in-law who was a missionary in Africa and lived in multi-ethnic neighborhoods in Chicago, and she just said food is absolutely essential. I think it's everybody gets to show off a little bit what they're able to make and what their traditions are. And I feel like when people sit down to eat together, something different happens. So I always would say to invite your neighbors to do some of the cooking. So I don't know if you do this together in the church kitchen or if you kind of say we're going to do a potluck, but they need to be able to bring some of the food also. Maybe you're going to share traditions. So I think it's a great way to build ties with neighbors is just say, I'm really interested in what you eat for particular holidays, for example, and could you teach me? Strategy number 6 is to attend events. This is one of my favorites because we have tons of neighborhood festivals in the summer here, and a lot of them have kind of an ethnic flavor to them. So Cinco de Mayo is a big one here. Community meetings would be one. So if people are gathering to talk about a particular issue, for example, you might want to make sure that you attend those, or if there's a series of events. And I find if I'm new to the bunch and maybe don't know everything, I just sit and listen. I'm just there to listen and to learn. One of my friends that I talked to about this, who's also a white woman, said, you know, I was concerned about police brutality in our community and the different groups that were affected by it, and I'm not in that group, and I'm not particularly working on that issue in my career, but one of my friends organized a forum on it, and I just thought, I need to inform myself about this because it's affecting people that I care about their welfare, so I need to learn about it myself. Attend celebrations. So this is a citizenship swearing in, and some of our current friends became citizens this year, which was very exciting. So if you're connected to immigrants and refugees and they become citizens, I would make every effort to be at that ceremony and celebrate, really celebrate with them. And then cultural events. So I would learn as much as you can about when those are and attend. You know, you might also see if you can help volunteer in getting stuff set up or torn down, or just be just help out, offer to help. So this is Chinese New Year. We talked about Cinco de Mayo. Certainly there are a wide range of cultural events. And I would say with our Karen friends, we went to Karen New Year one year, which is a huge event for them every year, and they it's a lot of dancing and singing, so they're demonstrating their talent, but they provided a free meal for every single person who attended that event, like with their plates set out with sections, and it had different, like 5 or 6 different things on each plate. So really experiencing their hospitality tradition. I would say it was much easier to connect with the people at my church, even though there's a language barrier. Once they saw us at that event, then they would come up and try to talk to us. So there was a warmer feeling between us. So it is really meaningful when you go to people's events. Strategy number 7 would be to help with issues the group needs help with. So find out from the people and institutions you've connected with, like, what are the key issues for the group and what could we help with? And one thing with young adults is they're beginning their careers and they're really looking for jobs. So I even thought, what about you know, having some kind of job mentoring or job connection through your church? If you have people that work at major corporations in town and maybe could connect young adults to a job or kind of help them understand interviewing process, etc., that'd be amazing. People might have basic needs, so if you have immigrants or refugees, probably that's likely, and also a need for housing. Your church might be a place to meet other people, so to network around jobs, or I don't know, I even wondered for if you've got a lot of young people in your community, maybe, or you know, if it's an aging community, maybe it's just a place to have a social gathering to meet other people. It's easy to become isolated, I think, and I think as Christians we're not supposed to just say that's the way it is. We're supposed to develop relationships ourselves and then encourage others to do likewise. So some of the kinds of things that people could need help with would be to navigate systems, like I talked about that before. So for people who are elderly, just even looking through their mail and helping them understand stuff they need to respond to and stuff they don't. I would say that's definitely true of immigrants and refugees, getting people signed up for public school to get the services they need, and networking for jobs, like I said, and finding appropriate housing. So I don't even know, maybe people in your congregation have places that, you know, a place in their house that they'd rent out, a lower level or something. This is a huge problem in our community, the lack of affordable housing. And I also feel like people who are on their own maybe would really enjoy living in a space connected to a family or another person. So I haven't seen any churches do that yet where they're encouraging church members to lease out part of their property, but I'm kind of waiting for that. I think it would be a great idea. So strategy number 8 is to attend regular groups. So these would be groups that meet together regularly to discuss critical issues. So you might see groups of nonprofits meeting together, government agencies, philanthropic groups, so maybe the funders, the foundations, or corporate funders in your community get together to talk about something. Business associations would be another group, and then maybe churches are gathering. So I've just listed some of the issues that people might be getting together to talk about. And depending on the group that you're trying to connect with, these might be issues that affect them. I have a hunch that immigration policy is going to move up the list here on things that people are going to want to be talking about based on the results of the election. And if you have immigrants and refugees you're trying to connect with, being much more tuned in to changes in immigration policy would be really smart for you. Financial issues. So that's a thing that affects young adults. So they're the most heavily in debt generation of any in the history of the U.S. because of college debt. People below the age of 35 in this country. So that's an issue for them. Access to health care. And you might also have groups in your community that are meeting around arts and culture, and that might be a way to connect. So here's some of the examples. Councils of churches, coalitions that form around a certain issue. School-based groups is another really good one where you'd really learn a lot. So if there's a site-based council or a parent-teacher association would be a way to connect. Neighborhood groups also. And like I said, business associations. So I'll talk in a minute about like immigrants and refugees start small businesses like crazy, and so that's kind of a distinct way to connect with them. So there might be the Latino Chamber of Commerce in your community, for example, and that'd be a great group for you to connect with. So strategy number 9 is to patronize small businesses owned by neighborhood residents, and I think this is a fantastic way to connect. So I'm just thinking about a church that I worked with, and the community was changing around it. Kind of, it had been more, I would say, blue-collar white people. A lot of homes that were built in like the late 1940s, 1950s, and more Latino people were moving in. So literally down kind of at the end of the driveway of this church was a bakery owned by a Latino woman, and nobody had ever gone in there. And it had been there for like kind of a lot of years. So I said, why don't you go in there and meet her and find out about her, and maybe that's where you get your donuts for church on Sunday morning. You're buying them from her so that you're putting money back into the community and building a relationship with her. So like I said, restaurants, including for catering. So this is a Somali restaurant. Somali food is absolutely delicious. So that's one of the perks of my working in that community right now. So yeah, I'm encouraging you to, maybe instead of ordering lunches from Panera or Subway, next time you have an event at church, like figure out who the local, the closest restaurant to your church might be owned by an immigrant or refugee, or maybe not, but you'd be building a relationship with a local business owner and supporting your community. Services like lawn care or cleaning would be another one. If you're needing to hire somebody to do that, why not hire a local business owner to provide that service? Art galleries and bookshops. So I know a lot of churches will, I don't know, buy little prizes or thank you gifts for staff or volunteers every year, so why not buy them a gift card to a place like this? Art made by local artists, or a locally owned bookstore. I know there aren't a lot of them anymore because the big box bookstores have taken over, but I'm just thinking about that. I also think I'm really into art myself. I collect art, so I have art made by people all over the world hanging all over my house, and I think it's good to hang more art in church buildings just generally. I think it's the coming generations that's more important to them, I would say, to have like beautiful spaces that are artful. And so why not buy art from local people and hang those paintings in your church? And then design and printing. So I'm wondering if you've got some local print shops. Everyone I know who works in graphic design who I've met lately is under the age of 35. So that'd probably be a fantastic way to build some bridges with young adults in your community if you've got a young adult rich community. And then strategy number 10 is share your space. This is the gratuitous guinea pig picture that I have in every one of my webinars because my family has 2 guinea pigs. So trying to share food. I wish my guinea pigs were as nice about this as these guinea pigs are. But anyway, so I'm just saying it's good to share. So I think in reaching out to your community, if you have space at the church that's not being utilized fully, like especially during the week, if you're mainly maybe Sunday morning, Wednesday night, building users, I would look at how you could share your space during the rest of the week. So there might be community meetings that you could be a host for. Certainly Alcoholics Anonymous groups are always looking for places to meet, and I love it when they meet in churches because church should be a safe place for people to come who are struggling with addictions, not a place that they would want to avoid. So that would be one suggestion. I'm working with the Restorative Justice nonprofit right now, so that's alternative means of people making restitution for crimes that they have committed. Often these are young people who have shoplifted, for example. So rather than going into the criminal justice system, they'll find another way to make amends. Often that involves working on community service. So I actually looked up restorative justice and put a restorative justice photo here because she said to me, we're always looking for places to meet in the community, like a neutral place, and churches are a great place because people can get to them. There's often parking. And so anyway, think about groups that might need space just to have periodic meetings. Maybe it's your neighborhood association, maybe it's the block club right around you. Yeah, so just be aware of that. And maybe it's sharing space with another faith community. So this to me looks like it's probably an African American church, if I had to guess, or maybe an African immigrant church with another community, with another church. So maybe they're Caucasian, maybe they're not. But you know, some churches will lease out space. That in itself doesn't necessarily lead to conversation or relationship building. So I mean, that's kind of another webinar that I do on church relationships. But you could, if you're really interested in building connections cross-culturally, that would be another option for you, is to be with another faith community and figure out how you could actually be together. And then you might consider free or lease space for nonprofits and other groups. So depending on the situation that your church is in financially, maybe you could, you know, provide a few offices for free. This is a actual school that's located in a United Church of Christ building, and anyway, it looks like it's a pretty elaborate setup. I don't really know a lot about them, but so when you get out and connect with institutions, that's how you maybe would find out different groups that are looking for some space. And again, just having people located in your building doesn't necessarily mean there'll be a relationship that comes up. Actually, sometimes it can make the relationship harder if you're having a dispute about the building or who gets to use it or who's going to clean it up or other things like that. But I think it does create some opportunities, just people coming in and out of your building, and yeah, an opportunity for maybe a more fully fledged relationship. So here is the summary for you of what we've talked about, the 10 strategies, and then I am open for questions after that. So remember the importance of bridge builders, so looking for those within your congregation and also looking for them in the community that you're looking to connect with. Do some learning about cultures ahead of time, so probably some reading, you know, maybe have some cultural experiences so you kind of know the background. Connecting to institutions, so we talked about groups that would be like nonprofits, government groups that maybe working on the issues that are of concern to the community you want to connect with. Learning about hospitality traditions, so when do those things happen? Where would they be held? What do people do when they get together? And then creating a way to gather around food, so be creative about that. Attending community events, so they might be cultural events like Chinese New Year, maybe it's community meetings, for example. Learning about the cultural group and then helping them with issues that they need help with. So maybe it's jobs, maybe it's looking at financial situations and figuring out what to do about those, maybe it's housing. Attend regular groups that would meet in the community. So you maybe need to learn about the issues that are of greatest concern and attend some groups that are meeting to discuss those or to take some action around them. Patronize small businesses owned by neighborhood residents. So again, rather than patronizing restaurants or service businesses outside of your community, become more aware of the neighborhood around your church and how you might utilize or purchase items or services from the businesses that are located there. And then thinking about sharing your space, which is no small thing, I realize, but if you have space and people in your community need some space to do really important work, I'd have a conversation about it and just see what might be possible. Well, that's the end of my formal presentation. So I think we've asked people to type questions in. Interested in feedback on the presentation, what kind of help you need, what kind of community or culture that you're trying to connect with.
All right. Thank you, Joy. So if any of the attendees would like to either type in a question using the chat box or the question icon in the control panel, or if you raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon in the control panel, I will open up your line and you can ask your question. She's offered us a lot of content here, so I'm looking forward to some good questions. Joy, you must have been rather comprehensive because I don't see any questions coming across.
Yeah, I'm seeing more rural communities that have ethnic diversity now in my work. So even if you're dialing in from, if you're not in a city or an urban area, yeah, there might be cultural differences that you've got to bridge where you are too. So that's been really interesting to hear from people about as I teach and as I travel around the country.
So we don't have any questions from the audience, but your presentation does contain your contact information. As well, you all are open to reach out to me. Oh, okay, we've got some questions coming across. Let's see.
Okay, good.
What words of wisdom would you offer for urban congregations trying to connect with rural communities?
Rural communities. Oh, wow. Well, I think that you'd have to spend some time there, like some good concentrated time so you can actually learn the place and the culture and learn about the people, I think would probably be step one. I'm thinking that being prepared to talk about the political divide would probably be wise. It looks like there's a real political divide between urban and rural in this country right now based on the results of the last election. So I think as Christians we maybe have to figure out how to have peaceful conversations across those differences, so maybe be ready for that. Be ready for, yeah, I don't know if there'd be class differences or not in terms of people's education level and their income, possibly. So I think that can be a really different kind of cultural bridge to cross. I'm always having to have conversations with myself about not making assumptions about people related to class. So I'm part of the educated class myself, and I'm upper middle class, so when I run into people that have more like blue-collar jobs, not as making assumptions about they've been to college, things that they can afford to do or not. Anyway, those would probably be some of the things that I would recommend.
All right. Another question. What's the biggest obstacle you have faced in this work, and how did you overcome it?
I think being afraid of offending people is a huge obstacle. And I feel like we've got to try. So that's what motivates me in the work that I do, is I want to encourage Christian people and Christian churches to try, like to make an effort to overcome that fear. So that's why I said at the beginning, I think it's possible I don't know anything. So, and that's okay. Like if I don't know anything, if you're curious and you're willing to listen to people, they appreciate that, and they're usually willing to talk to you. I haven't really gotten pushback from people from other cultures, I have to say. If I tried to build a bridge with them, nobody said no. So I always try and keep that in mind as well.
All right, another question. I'm currently working on getting my congregation to open up their Sunday school rooms for a social worker to come in and work out of the church building during the week so that clients would not need to travel so far to receive services. Do you have any
Wow.
advice or concerns to look out for in creating this type of partnership? It is a very affluent congregation, but some parts of the community are becoming more impoverished.
Usually I would recommend some kind of written agreement about use of space. And it can be really simple. It sounds like it's not a lease, but even if you're not receiving money for the use of the space, just putting down on one page, these are the rooms that you'll have access to and the hours. And any expectations about the space, he or she need to set it up the way that they found it. I find partnerships often fall apart on small stuff like who's going to replace the paper towel, and things like that. So I would try and get some of that detail down. I don't know, I don't know if there'd be, it sounds like there'd need to be confidentiality too, so I don't know if you have staff, maybe you're coaching them on, we're not going to approach the people that are coming in to meet with the social worker. This needs to stay confidential, and I don't know, those are the things that I would think about. That sounds like a really fantastic idea. So I'm glad that you're looking at using your space that way, and it's a great use of a church building because we are often located right in the community, close to people, and so it makes sense to use our buildings for other things besides Sunday morning worship.
All right, Joy, I'm trying to bring up the next question. Let's see. Oh, you just got a thank you.
Oh, okay, good.
All right, I don't see any others. And again, feel free to reach out to Joy at her email in the presentation. I will forward the webinar and her information and the notes after we close this webinar.
And
So,
do send me emails about kind of wondering if I need to do some more writing on this or training. So I'm looking for feedback on how this could be fleshed out more, or particular issues that you're facing. So yeah, send me an email about that if you will.
Awesome. Joy, as always, thank you for your time, and thank you to each of our participants. I do encourage you to learn more about 7 creative models for community ministry, and you can find it on our website, judsonpress.com. Um, all orders placed online receive a 20% discount. And I also invite you to join us, join our mailing list. You can do that online, and you'll be informed about upcoming webinars, new releases, etc. There's a wealth of information out there. So thank you again for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.